Hi everyone, welcome to this bonus presentation that's part of the Summer 19 release Readiness. We are part of the Health Cloud team and very excited to be here to share with you all of the exciting new innovations that are part of the Health Cloud Summer 19 release. Before we go further, let me just cover our forward-looking statement. Please make all purchasing decisions based on currently available functionality. My name is Rohit, and I'm going to cover some interesting advances that we've made in the areas of life sciences program management, provider relationship management, and out-of-the-box workflows for your contact center.
And I'm Zaid Mahmood. I'm here to talk about interoperability for Health Cloud.
So with that, let's jump right in. Let me cover quickly what Health Cloud is for those of you that are not familiar with Health Cloud. Health Cloud is Salesforce's healthcare and life sciences platform. We're built on the Salesforce platform, so it's not a distinct cloud. It is meant to bring healthcare innovations and life sciences innovations to the healthcare and life sciences industry. Health Cloud is our platform for patient and member engagement. It's meant to engage patients anywhere, really meet them where they are, on any channel, and allow you to customize and extend healthcare-specific data models and workflows. These are all some of our interesting new solutions that are part of Summer 19. We've always been focused on members and patients, and with the Summer 19 release, for the first time, we're also turning our attention, or expanding our attention, I should say, to provider relationship management. We think of them as a key constituent for your organizations. I'm going to cover Lightning Scheduler. Some of you know that we've released Lightning Scheduler as part of our Spring 19 release, and we've continued to invest and expand the capability that's part of Lightning Scheduler. Life Sciences Program Management, for the first time, we have a dedicated focus on life sciences, both for pharma and med devices, and we'll cover some of the advances we've made for program management. And then Lightning Flows, and then my colleague Zaid will cover our interoperability areas of investment. So let's talk about provider relationship management. In the Summer 19 release, to be very specific, we have released the foundational data model to capture providers, which includes practitioners, physicians, as well as provider organizations. So what you have here is a visual of the provider data model, and I'll go into a more detailed diagram. But this is meant to capture, again, physicians, practitioners, provider organizations, and all of the hierarchy within those organizations, the connection of the physicians or practitioners to to the various provider organizations, be it in the capacity of an employed physician, be it an affiliated physician, physicians identifying which hospitals they have admitting or attending privileges at, where do they actually work, which clinics do they work at, all of those things. So practicing locations, the practice administrators of those locations, when do they work there, their operating hours of the facility, their credential information such as their specialty, their taxonomy, their license information, education, board certification, all of those things, as well as their NPI and other identifiers. And lastly, and most importantly, what networks are they a part of? So we'll go into a little bit more detailed look at this in just a second. And the use cases that we think of it enabling are the following. For payers, we think of it as being the foundation for provider network management and provider relationship management, which we are going to launch at Dreamforce this year. For medical device companies, it is the foundational model for med device sales. And then for providers, you could use it in a number of different ways. For provider organizations, you could use it for managing referrals, your relationship with partner provider organizations and physicians, and also for scheduling in a way that's connected into Lightning Scheduler. So those are all some of the use cases that we are working on enabling, but this is the foundational data model that enables all of that. So this is a slightly deeper look at that data model. At its core, we're leveraging core Salesforce objects, including account and contact. So a physician or another licensed practitioner is represented using the contact object, again, standard object in Salesforce. And the account object is used to represent healthcare provider organizations, as well as utilizing account hierarchy to manage the entire provider organization hierarchy that you need to manage. And the way that these physicians can be connected to these various accounts is either through primary account, for those of you that are more technical, so that's the account that the contact belongs to. It could be through the account contact relationship, or it could be through this new object that we've created that's called Healthcare Practitioner Facility, which identifies the specific provider organizations where these physicians actually work. It could be clinics, it could be operating rooms, it could be hospitals where they have admitting or attending privileges, and so forth. In terms of the legend that I've used here, the white boxes are all of our existing standard Salesforce objects, so we've leveraged a lot of those. The yellows are all of the brand new objects that we've created as part of the Health Cloud license, but they belong in Salesforce Core. And then the pink objects are those that came from a different part of our product suite. So these are from field service lighting. You might recognize those. And these objects are now part of the Health Cloud license and enable us to capture things like the operating hours for a physician at a particular facility or for a facility itself. In addition, if you don't need to actually track a business level entity within your provider organization hierarchy, let's say they're just sites, perhaps it's a mobile van where your clinic is providing services, you could just set up a location which isn't sort of as heavy as an account. And that's meant to capture some of the location-specific details, such as does it have an accessible ramp, the specific geolocation of that, of where that maybe van is or maybe that location is, and so forth. So again, very exciting. It allows us to capture a number of different dimensions. It's the foundational model. We will keep building on it, as well as continue to invest in the larger provider relationship management story. And you'll hear us talk about it more at Dreamforce. So that's a lot about our provider data model. Again, the foundational data model to power what we're building in the future. With that, let me turn my attention over to Lightning Scheduler. This is also a really exciting advance that we've made. We released Lightning Scheduler in the Spring 19 release. What this allows you to do is enables provider or payer organizations, maybe even med device or pharma, to book certain resources with your patients or members. So for example, you could use it for scheduling care coordinators with your members or patients. In the future, we are working to enable scheduling facilitation to schedule physicians. That isn't quite there yet. It could be other types of assets that you might want to book, for example, MRI machines or infusion chairs, dialysis chairs, those sorts of things. So we first released this in Spring 19, and since then, in the Summer 19 release, we've made quite a few enhancements. The first and most important is the patient or member's ability to self-schedule. We call that inbound scheduling, but it really is self-service and the ability, again, for your patients or members to look up appointment availability and then book themselves into that appointment slot. It's available in communities as well as via an embedded service, which we'll talk about in a second. And then it also is built to be very configurable. So it's built using Lightning flows. And you can use these as templates. So you can sort of modify them. You can configure them. You can move things around in terms of the sequence. There's a number of capabilities to really configure and customize, as you might expect from Salesforce. Along with that, the template, you can also clone it, modify, save, activate. It allows you to do a number of different things that weren't possible with just our Spring 19 release. And I mentioned you can embed this in communities so that your patients can log into their community record, Salesforce community, and then make their appointment. But you can also do something that's super cool, which is embed this Lightning Scheduler on your website. So patients can just go to your website and book appointments from there. We think that's a great way for patients that maybe don't belong to your organization yet to be able to go look up resources and be able to book themselves into those time slots. And then, most importantly, we've also added the ability for not just human resources to be scheduled, but also for assets to be scheduled. So these are things that are like MRI machines, again, infusion chairs, dialysis chairs. These are all assets. They're not human resources. They needed a smaller sort of footprint in Salesforce, and we've now enabled those assets to be scheduled as opposed to just human resources, which used to be tracked as users in Salesforce. So again, a number of interesting and exciting advances. We'll continue to invest in Lightning Scheduler to power healthcare and life sciences use cases. All right, let me move on then. Another key advance we've made is in the area of life sciences. Program management is a key area which we think of using Health Cloud for. Traditionally, you run programs, and again, the way I would define a program is you have a cohort of members or patients that you're enrolling in a particular program for a particular reason, and that allows you to track things like what were the outcomes. It allows you to identify what campaigns they might be a part of, and you might have multiple campaigns that run over a period of time, maybe not just one campaign that's part of our marketing cloud. And maybe you can define assessments and surveys and care plans and those sorts of things that all belong in this structured program concept. Let me sort of take a little step back and cover why we went after this. As we know, there's a lot of inherent challenges with running these programs that you face. From an operational perspective, it's automating some of the processes. You lack the ability to do that. Perhaps it's identifying who should be part of this program. From an onboarding perspective, perhaps it's sort of streamlining these processes to onboard them and have a scalable program. Perhaps it's measuring the performance where things lack, and we want to help you with that. Or maybe it's interoperability, is Salesforce and your other systems that you use to manage programs perhaps aren't standalone. And and so what we want to do with Salesforce is make it easy for you to integrate your other systems of record with Salesforce and allow you to run these programs in an efficient manner. And lastly, and most importantly, is patient engagement. We want to make sure that patients have a way to engage with your organization so that they can stay on that program and not fall off the bandwagon. So with that, we're introducing for the first time what we're calling life sciences program management. We realized that as our provider and payer organizations have looked at this, they've also indicated to us parts of it, or maybe in its entirety, might be useful. So it's by no means limited to just life sciences. It is part of the Health Cloud product, so everyone has access to this information and capability. So program management allows you the ability to plan, create, manage, and scale these care programs quickly, easily, and efficiently. That's the goal of it. It allows you to quickly stand up these programs, enroll patients, track it, make sure you do all the things you need to do, and then close that program, again, in an easy-to-use manner. And that can be done we expect you to do it in minutes and hours, not take weeks to stand up these programs. The goal of it, of course, is to drive adherence. If you have a drug that you're tracking and you want to make sure patients are adherent to that or adherent to just the program, it's a way to sort of drive adherence, really improve your retention and outcomes that you hope to achieve as part of running this program. A few different things that are part of the initial release. One is, again, the foundational data model, and some of this might help clarify what's a part of it as well. This allows us to track all the enrollees, so these are all the patients that are enrolled in the program. It allows us to track who are all the organization employees that are part of this program team. It allows us to define and manage these patients across multiple campaigns. It allows us to define what surveys should be sent to them, what care plans should they be a part of, should maybe be applied to all of the patients that are within this particular program, and really also control the eligibility criteria. So a couple things I'll clarify. One is the key difference between care programs and care plans. Care plans are a way for an individual patient to indicate what sort of care plan should they be on. Care program allows you to define a cohort of members or patients that are all part of this program and are sort of going through it together. The other big difference that I've been asked about is the difference between programs and campaigns. Campaigns allow you to enroll a patient or set of patients in a journey, and think of a program as a superset of that, and allows you to have a defined and structured program that you might have multiple campaigns that run over the course of that particular program being run. So that's the foundational data model. Along with it comes an API that allows you to enroll multiple patients into the care program, but you don't have to go physically type that in. It could be through an API. And then also very exciting is the patient engagement part of it, which allows patients to engage in their own, by themselves into the program that you're trying to run. So I'll just show you very quickly what that looks like in Health Cloud. So I'm logged in to Health Cloud. I'm looking at a particular patient. Perhaps I'm part of the program team, and I'm looking at this patient. And immediately I can see what programs are they a part of. And I can go into the program and look at additional details, such as who are all the team members that are managing that program along with me, all the patients that are enrolled as part of the program, the campaigns that we have run. It's a way to sort of structure and have all of that information accessible at the same time. So that's really interesting. And then we also talked about the patient engagement part of it. So now I'm switching my view. I'm logged in now as the patient. And as a patient, I can look at what programs am I a part of, and I can look at additional detail about that program and engage. So this is really meant to be a way that we can drive engagement and be able to keep them adherent to the program and improve outcomes. So again, very exciting. We'll continue to keep investing in it. One key advance we're going to make in hopefully the Winter 20 release, which is coming up this October, is the ability to capture consent, which we think is a key part of the program management. All right, and then lastly, I'll cover Lightning Flows. So Lightning Flows is the Salesforce ability to manage a process. So think of the call center, for example. They do a lot of repetitive processes. For example, the patients or members might call in and they need to get their ID cards, or perhaps they need to search and change their PCP. Perhaps they need to log an appeal because a prior authorization was denied. There's any number of these use cases that your call center agents do on a day in and day out basis. And Lightning Flows allows us to sort of control that process. It allows us to control the integration to your other systems of record, perhaps to the claim system, say facets or other types of systems, and really enables you to control and structure that process that they follow. So with that, we're very excited to release 3 Lightning Flows. It's our first foray into building out-of-the-box Lightning Flows for the purpose of contact center. We'll keep adding on to that. We realize in your contact center you have a lot more than three flows, of course. These are 3 of the ones that we've released, which is updating the PCP, creating a new appeal against a previous prior authorization, and lastly, requesting member ID card. So those are the 3 that we've enabled with this release, and we'll keep working on it, as well as looking at other areas to enable these structured Lightning Flows. So that's all I have. With that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Zabe.
Thanks, Rohit. That's exciting stuff. So let's talk about interoperability for Health Cloud. Interoperability for Health Cloud has 3 main ingredients. The first one is entity-level APIs. These are the APIs which have already existed since we built Health Cloud. Health Cloud was originally built and continues to be running on Salesforce platform. In addition to using the standard entities from Salesforce, we also have built a very rich data model, close to 100 entities within the healthcare space. These entities also have all the accessibility of creating records, deleting, updating them through APIs. These are what we call the entity-level APIs. However, now we are also releasing what's called business APIs. Business APIs are APIs which go at a higher level and encompass multiple functionality, the business logic within a single API call. With that, I'll talk about what these business APIs do and maybe what they don't do by design, and then talk about the 4 new business APIs that we have introduced in Summer 19 release. So the business APIs are focused on the healthcare subvertical. So if you are creating a patient, it may be in the back end be a person account, or it might be an account or contact object. Those are the standard objects. However, at the business API level, you are calling a create patient or a create member. That is the level of granularity. That is the language that the business API speaks. These APIs are very suitable, easily used by other applications. So at times, no middleware required for integration purposes. An external application could be calling into Health Cloud using these business APIs very comfortably. Most of these APIs are REST APIs, keeping them neutral. Could be used by any consuming application. But some of those APIs are also Apex APIs. These APIs are currently not intended for optimized UI purposes, more specifically for responsive UIs. You could certainly use these APIs for surfacing data in the UI and then submitting data from the UI, but not intended for responsive UIs. These APIs are also not intended to replace the Salesforce bulk API and therefore are not suitable for high volume data migrations. What these APIs do is that they continue to honor what you already are familiar with. You're already familiar with using Salesforce SOAP APIs, REST API, etc. The same API, authentication, authorization, API rate limits, quotas are honored. So you don't have any learning curve there. They accept and respond back in a neutral, now very popular format, which is the JSON format of data. And there is some level of configurability allowed within these APIs. These are by design not very highly configurable APIs because they provide optimized, streamlined solution for specific use cases, but there's some level of configurability. More specifically, if you have entities coming in from your JSON and you want to map those entities to the data model, that level of configurability is available. These APIs currently do not support SOAP API. They currently do not support the Salesforce bulk API. However, within these APIs, you are able to submit multiple records. Look at the developer docs for details, as some APIs have limits of 25, others may have a limit of 100 or 200. But synchronous calls, you can submit multiple records and retrieve multiple records. However, these are not asynchronous bulk APIs. These are the 4 APIs that we have rolled out in our current Summer 19 release. The first 3 APIs that you see are also known as authorization APIs, commonly in the industry known as ANSI 278 data transactions, popularly used for prior authorizations, referrals, or notifications coming in from providers, typically going through a middleman, a clearinghouse, and then ending up on the payer side. That's the role that Health Cloud is playing right here, accepting electronically these transactions and responding back to these transactions electronically using REST APIs. You have a post to create, a patch to update an already submitted request, and a get to retrieve already submitted requests and check on their statuses. The fourth one we briefly touched upon earlier is the Program Enrollment API. This is also an API which is RESTful API. A single API call can accept multiple records and create patient enrollment cards and enrollee products in the single API call. All the business logic is embedded within the APIs. Typically, the business APIs in general would be using healthcare terminology. In the back end, these could be standard objects or a combination of standard objects and healthcare-specific objects, but at the API signature level, they'll always be talking the healthcare language. So we speak the language of the healthcare through these APIs. The business logic is well-tested, embedded within these APIs. Referential integrity, rollbacks, etc. are all built in to the logic of the business API. Most of these business APIs would actually never touch a single entity. They would be touching multiple entities, at times 6, 7, 8, 12 entities. Therefore, you can see the benefit of calling a single API and having to insert or retrieve data from multiple entities. Here's a flow of the authorization API. A single API is able to create up to 7 different authorization requests and multiple of each one of those request types. So you can quickly see how a single API call can save you from a lot of building and then maintaining code with multiple API calls. Moving on from Health Cloud business APIs to our next ingredient, which is the MuleSoft connectors. Salesforce acquired MuleSoft technology, a market leader in integration space. MuleSoft has a concept called connectors. A MuleSoft connector is a mechanism by which you can expose an external endpoints APIs within the MuleSoft's development environment, known as MuleSoft Studio, or another one called MuleSoft Design Center. Examples are Salesforce connector within MuleSoft Developer Studio, or X12, which is more generic but is used for EDI data transactions within the healthcare space, or HL7 V2 connectors. These are all examples of connectors provided by MuleSoft. Health Cloud team has gone ahead and built a new connector on MuleSoft for CAQH. CAQH has two services, ProView and Direct Assure, which combined have 17 different APIs. These APIs expose data from providers around North America, from 1.5 million providers. And on the other side, this data is consumed by more than 1,000 entities. These are hospitals, health plans, etc. CAQH is crowdsourcing this data, massaging this data, keeping it in a high quality repository, and then providing it to the consuming entities. Now, all of this data is available to you if you are using Health Cloud in combination with MuleSoft. Typical uses are credentialing or claims management. The way to get to this connector would be to go to MuleSoft Anypoint Exchange. It's a public exchange. Go ahead and select connectors as your asset and search on CAQH. You'll see the CAQH connector, which is available for Mule 4. Mule 4 is the most current, latest runtime engine by MuleSoft. There's documentation available with examples to help you understand how to go ahead and use the connector, and also details on each one of the 17 services which are exposed through this connector. Once the connector is downloaded or installed in your dev environment in MuleSoft, you would be able to see the 17 services on your right-hand side in the palette, and then you can use another connector, let's say Salesforce connector on the other side, to bring in data from MuleSoft, from CAQH using MuleSoft all the way into Health Cloud. An example would be that if you are using provider credentialing process within Health Cloud, then you can bring in provider data from CAQH, do the data transformations within MuleSoft, and map the data into Health Cloud provider data model. So with that, I'm excited to wrap up our Summer 19 release. As you can see, Health Cloud Summer 19 release is packed with brand new features and enhancements to some existing features. Thank you for watching.